Welcome to this wonderful, relaxed window grow. I had some seeds to choose from and decided to take the Northern Lights Autoflower. I don't think I have to explain why you should use an autoflower for this type of grow. They stay small and finish fast. Other stuff is just not possible hidden at a window. Alright. To germinate the seed, I let it soak in regular, drinkable tap water for 18 hours. After that, I placed the soaked seed in the pre-growing pot. You may have heard that you shouldn't transplant autoflowers, and this is more or less correct. Their vegetating is limited and every day in a bigger pot with more root space is beneficial. But my space is also limited and I need to pre-grow other plants at this window as well, so this is the only option. If you transplant them before they have grown too long inside of the little pot, it doesn't harm the growth in any way. No worries. So there are the first ladies. In the first few pictures and videos you will see more pots. The plant that will grow out here is in the pink pot. Nice color. And if you watched my Guerrilla growing series, you will already know what happened first. The seeds did not germinate. It looks like I wasn't able to keep the soil moist enough over a longer time and the straight sunlight on them wasn't that beneficial either. So long story short, I took the seed out of the soil again and placed it into a wet towel for germination. I took the seed out after 4 days and it still worked. If they weren't dead inside before the start, the seeds seemed to take a lot of harm very easily. I think you have already noticed that you can see the date always in the bottom right corner. So 6 days later there was finally a seedling. Okay, cool seedling. Many people are asking for the soil, nutrients and watering schedules. My opinion on that is you don't have to make it complicated. I just used some soil we had left on our balcony. It's regular old plant soil you can buy very cheap at any store. Added are some tiny claystone bricks that are said to absorb water and nutrients and give them to the plant's roots if needed. Sounds nice and they make the soil more fluffy as well. I think they are worth it. Not too expensive either and this works just fine. Growing cannabis is no rocket science. In this time I gave them a really little dose of basic balcony nutrients with tap water. I tried to keep the soil a bit wet the whole time. Of course not too much, but you would notice it as the pot would get heavy as fuck and the water would flow out of the holes in the bottom. In my opinion, you should be really careful with nutrients in this period of growth. Seedlings mostly seek for water, sunlight and something warm. I think too much nutrients would only harm them as they cap the amount of water they can absorb. So now we are here at the 24th May. This was the day of the start of my Guerrilla grow, so the other plants will be gone now. A little fun fact, did you know that the tiny plant in the bottom left turned out to become the biggest plant of them all? Interesting stuff. So this is the look of the Northern Lights before transplanting into a bigger pot. No sign of pre-flowering, so the time should be good. And now it's time for a little quiz. With what did I fill the big pot the plant will continue to grow? Is it A, coconut fibers mixed with claystones, optimal nutrients and pH'd? Or is it B, high quality soil especially made for young plants, giving her everything she needs like nutrients and mycorrhiza? Holy shit, how do I spell this? Is it maybe C, the extremely expensive soil created under scientific circumstances providing the optimal growing conditions for cannabis? Or is it D, the same shit I had laying around for the seedling pots, which is absolutely fine for growing nearly everything, but just more of it? Correct, it is C! Of course it's D. Don't let people tell you too much poop about soil and stuff. I am doing it like this and you can check out the results with that in the end and think about it. I don't know how much gallons fit in the bucket either, just take a guess. But of course I won't choose a too huge one as this is, you know, a secret window grow. I also drilled some holes in the edges of the pot for the low stress training. Low stress training is basically just bending. I don't know why we used this other definition. Kinda weird. So bending, starting like this. Maybe you are asking why I am doing this, and I am very glad you asked. Cannabis plants regularly grow in this Christmas tree shape, one peak with a huge pack of flowers in the end. In most cases, growers don't want this because the goal are more middle-sized buds with equal quality instead of one huge fantastic bud and the rest just popcorn stuff. And you have to break the big one down anyways if you want to smoke some, so our goal is training the plant to form many peaks with the same heave. This will also keep the plant more flat, which helps to keep it hidden. Oh, and maybe I should mention that my window is facing southeast direction. Yep, okay. Banding is really simple. In a grow tent it may be different with the light coming from the top, but with the sun coming only from one side it's really easy. Just bend the plant away from the source of light and it will develop more branches to the sunnier side. And if the bottom nodes get more direct sunlight, they will grow stronger. I mean these ones. You should bend the plant at the highest point possible without damaging the leaves. If you make it too low, the top may just lift up again and only leave a tribe with a small twist. That's not what we want. There is no need for a fear of breaking the tribe of the plants. They are very elastic. And if you break it, sad life, but you learned something. And you can basically just stabilize the tribe with a stick then, and in 1 or 2 days it will recover it herself. Easy. There's actually really much I have to explain on this one picture. Interesting. Oh, and for banding I am just using some metal wire I had, laying around too. Does the job fine. Last thing on that, if the leaves are touching the wet soil, this isn't a good sign in general. But if the plant is freshly bent, it had literally no time to lift them up again. Just wait some days and look if she lifts them up again herself. If not, you can still remove it when it starts to rot or something. But don't remove too many leaves in the early stages of growth, as we are only doing low stress training. Whipping too much off would be more like high stress training. Sounds kinda stressy. 2 days later and you can already see how the top is trying to grow upwards again. And that's fine. The next banding will be situational. At the 1st June, it's time to do something else. From the top it looks like a bit tall, but from the side it's really flat. And you can already see how the lower branches are beginning to shoot upwards from the tribe. That's exactly the goal, and by the way, the first pre-flowers. Oh nice, it's a girl. But pre-flowering means there is still more than enough time for some vegetative growth. Now it's time for the second step of the low stress training, a little defoliation. This means removing leaves, or in this case, one leaf. This one is shadowing the side branches down there really good, so taking this leaf from the plant will be beneficial for the overall growth. So let's snap it off with the fingers really quick. Looks cool by the way. Now it looks like this. Nice. One day later I placed the wire closer to the top to put it down a little bit more. And as you can see, this is already a really tough banding, but that's just fine. Then after watching it a bit, I saw which 2 leaves would be also fine to get defoliated. You know, that's always really situational. Just watch closely and decide wise which leaves are taking too much sunlight away from the lower branches and prevent them from growing big and remove them. Of course, not too many. Here a little side-by-side comparison. This is like the same light and just watch the light green from the lower, freshly grown branches. Yummy. And at this point the side branches finally started to really shoot into the air. A few days later they were ready to get bent as well. And from these bent side branches will other side branches start to grow. Yeah, a quick overview on how I managed this with the style the branches grew. Time for some talking about water and nutrients. For the first half of the grow, I used some basic balcony NPK stuff you can buy everywhere. Always little doses with the tap water I am giving. And after the stuff was empty, I used some hippie 100% biological I love Mother Nature stuff. Basically some fluid animal shit and crop leftovers. Worked fine. I always watered situational as well. There is no real schedule. I lifted the pot to get a feeling for the weight of the good watered pot. Just try to keep the same weight all the time and yeah, that's it. You literally see if it is not enough because the plant will hang down and it's just too much if it flows out of the holes of your pot. Simple stuff. But don't let it soak up so heavy that it's always very close to dripping everything out. Try to develop a feeling for the correct watering. The click in your brain will help you in most situations according to gardening. And now it starts to grow really fast before the real flowering sets in. After the time was ready, I bent and defoliated it again. This time a few more leaves as you can see. And now the plant starts to look very kinda funny. Some days and it will look great again. The flowers are now shooting out at the main tribe already, but still only the very early flowers. Here you can see two examples again on where I removed a fan leaf to trigger more growth in the nodes. There are always 2 side branches and 2 fan leaves at every node. I am removing basically always the leaf pointing upwards. The one on the bottom will catch the sunlight that went past the branches and that's their job. Sweet. And it just continues, you know, plant looks funny as hell and enjoys the sun. Now I added something for extra reflection. 2 white bucket covers next to it and some white styrofoam boxes directly behind it. This really made a difference, so if you can do it somehow, go for it. More light equals more growth. And this is more or less all the training for the plant. Now the side branches and tops will shoot upwards and produce flowers. Oh yeah, it's starting. At one point I started to call it the warship because it somehow has the shape of a ship. Yeah. Again from the side you can see that the overall plant is really flat and the actual top has about the same height as the other branches. Very nice. Here are the side branches on the side branches. One day it lost some leaves, but it doesn't seem to be that drastic. Then I noticed something. All of the leaf tips are basically dry and brown. This is a so-called nutrients burn, which occurs if, well, you nutrients the plant a bit too much. Some people say that this is a sign that the plant is at the optimal limit of nutrients as only the tips get damaged. But I would say this is already a sign that you have to stop nutrientsing. So from this point I only watered with pure water. As basically nothing changed in this week, we can just skip to the next week. See? Almost nothing changed, only a bit of flower growth. As I already mentioned for watering, lift the pot and you can estimate. And maybe just watch the holes in the ground to be sure. And then water a sip. Now the flowers just continue to grow. Simple stuff, still no external nutrients. So now, tell me what you see. You saw those? Good. So the plant has optimal conditions, but more and more leaves are dying. That's actually a good sign. You know, autoflowers are supposed to die after they produce enough flowers. And well, that means that the buds will now grow like they never grew before. While you watch the next few days, I can talk about the smell. If your doll lets much air through it, maybe cover it with a wok or a plastic plane. The smell is not that intense, but always present in that room, so better be safe. More and more leaves are turning yellow now, but if the plant is about to die soon, it pushes all of the energy into the flowers. So, leaves dying, flowers flourishing. New, fresh flowers are basically shooting out everywhere now. Making the pictures from the other side of the light makes the buds look way huger, by the way, because of the trichomes reflecting the light towards the camera. Always keep that in mind when people are showcasing their buds and also their flowers. That joke is kinda bad. Who cares? So I think at this point I started to add a tiny dose of nutrients again. I think it helped for a final sprint. And this day is kinda interesting. It's the day I harvested my Gowilia grows, and as this room is my drying room as well, I had to darken it. Some light is still getting through, so I don't know. Some people keep their plants dark before harvesting, so I thought maybe I'm doing that too. Well, but then I removed the carton and just let it grow like before. Worked. So, and this day is finally the day of harvest. Normally I harvest when the mold is trying to take over, but I don't have this problem indoors. So I harvested when the first buds are so matured that they were just a little time before they would get some bad looking spots. You know, some little brown spots. Some example would be this sugar leaf. The trichomes are just looking fine, many amber ones on the older flowers and many milky ones on the newer ones. Yummy yummy. And as you can see finally, many leaves are very crispy and the other ones yellow and hanging. Time to say goodbye to the world, dear girl. Well, before that I tried to make some cool pictures, but while looking at them now, they don't really look that special. Never mind, rest in peace. Here they're laying and here they're hanging. Yeah. I am drying the stuff in the same room I grew it. Simple stuff. For ventilation I used a simple pillar fan and opened the window. I don't have the optimal drying conditions with the high temperature. That's nothing new, but not too dramatic either. This is actually one of The two reasons I am dry trimming, so removing the leaves from the flowers when they are already dry. It's said that slower drying is better drying, and if my room is so hot that it dries fast, I leave the leaves on the buds to form a little cocoon around them, in which their drying should be slower. That's my theory. I don't know if it helps though. And the second reason is most harvesting is so much work that I'm basically done after doing that and don't want to trim right away. Maybe not with this grow, but now it's kinda common for me to do that, so gotta stick to it. I am drying them up to the point where the smaller branches make a snapping sound without breaking clean off. The test after 6 days, the bud still felt kinda moist from the outside. Also, while trying to bend it, it still was really spongy, so obviously not ready yet. The hot period was over fast, and so they took a bit longer to dry. So in the end they dried for 12 days. This is the tribe of a other plant, but here you can see what I mean with the snapping sound without breaking clean off. So it made a snapping sound, but at the first one it didn't even break off, and at the second spot it still hung at the main piece. And how I trim them is, take a branch and take a bud from it. Then there are two methods for trimming. The first one is to cut out every leaf individually at its branch. If you do this with every single leaf on the bud, it will look like a beauty. Just like here, but that takes very much time. If I would only have this grow, I may have done it with the whole plant, but after trimming weed for over 5 hours straight, I was basically done. So the second method is to take your scissors and just cut around it. Maybe pulling a bit while doing it, and that's it. Kinda fast, but not that precise, but come on, who cares about the look of your homegrown stuff? And according to scissors, you can just use anything you have laying around as well. You don't need any trimmers or some stuff. That's just scam in my eyes. And again, to the second method, more leaves on the buds also means that you can smoke more of it without getting super high within one puff. Sometimes that's also nice. So now it looks like this, also looks nice. Some curled leaves have a kinda neat look. Here's a comparison with the strict manicured bud on the left and the lazy style on the right. Eagle eyes would have noticed now that I used these buds as footage in the final Guerrilla Grow episode. Oh man, I'm so evil. So here is the final amount of trimmed stuff and the trim itself.